welcome to Movies, Films, and Flicks. I am Mark Hoffmeyer, and joining me is a man who never trusts a blueberry. It's Niall Moore.
Hey, have we had this conversation before?
Yeah. Yeah, our first couple were rough, so I just keep going back into a dark closet, going back in time. I'm going to get the perfect conversation here.
I did wonder where you were going. It's been a bit weird sitting here and just watching you go back and forth.
It makes the editing easier. I just go back to a closet. Like, if I mess up on something, I don't have to go back and fix it. Well, I'm doing this until we get the perfect recording. That involves zero editing for me.
So, well, yeah, that's one way of doing it.
Yeah. The amount of time I spent 2 years trying to get the perfect thing when I could have edited it in 40 minutes. So, hey, thanks for coming back. We did Back to the Future, kind of a domestic time travel. Now we're with About Time, another domestic time travel, kind of. That was the theme you want, right? Is that what we're working on?
I don't know. You just mentioned you wanted to do an episode about it, and it's a movie that I really like. So I'm like, cool, I'll talk about it. And coincidentally, it seems to be, time travel again.
I love this movie. So I watched it. We immediately bought the soundtrack. I listen to it all the time.
The soundtrack's awesome.
Oh, dude, the Sugar Babes. Push the button and I don't know, Ben Folds, The Luckiest. I dig that song.
For me, I remember when I was young, my dad was really into Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, and there's that Nick Cave track that plays towards the end of the movie, and I'm just like, I didn't get it when I was 12, but I get it now. Yeah,
it's a beautiful soundtrack, excellent actors. I mean, you have Domhnall Gleeson, Rachel McAdams, Bill Nighy, Lydia Wilson, Lindsay Duncan, and then you Tom Hollander, Margot, Robbie, Vanessa, Kirby. Tom Hughes.
Yeah,
there's some big names in this movie.
Well, it's what you expect from a Richard Curtis movie.
Pirate Radio.
He always has the casts.
Yeah, that's a great point. These movies are always stacked with him. And, he has a proven track record, so it's plain to see why people would want to show up for this movie. Now, I have one question for you. One thing that's been kind of eating at me. So, he never has a name, right? It's called Dad in the movie, right? Now, he says to Tim, the movie was supposed to be called Time Travel and Tim originally, and they were like, no, we can't do that. That's a bad title. But then, so he says, money is no good. You don't want that money. No one ever found happiness with money. But he retired when he was 50, and they have a beautiful, beautiful lake, oceanfront home, and they're not wanting for anything whatsoever. So, is that easy for him to say that? Because he was a professor. Do you have that salary? We never quite know what mom does. But it's the sturdy mom. Yeah. But it's kind of, is that a little, hypocrite? What do you think about it? That's my one problem. My one thing I have. I don't know what you think.
Well, that's Cornwall.
Yeah.
Cornwall is actually reasonably cheap to buy property, and depending on where it is.
Oh, got it.
It's, especially if they bought it, say back in the 70s or in the 80s. Family home down there. My in-laws live down there, actually. Beautiful part of the world.
I like Rachel McAdams trying to explain it.
It's the bit down the bottom, that looks like a shoe.
Hey, do you answer any questions, Niall? I love that scene. She's like, no, He is not talking. So maybe I'm wrong on that. But he seems to have had a life of they seem to have had a nice life of leisure. And so I know they don't have much money, but it also seems like they were able to get to where they were totally comfortable. So it just seems a little, am I crazy? It seems a little hypocritical.
Well, I think what he was getting at was obscene wealth doesn't help you.
Like Scarface.
A little bit of playing the stock market every day wouldn't, just to keep your family comfortable, probably wouldn't go amiss, especially when you know the outcome of every trade. You just be like, okay, so Apple stock went up tenfold in the last month. I'm just going to go back to here. I'm going to buy some Apple stock, and then I'm going to sell it here. And, that's my 3-month salary done.
Yeah, that's a great point. And also, we have the lottery here in the States. It's we could, if you don't want the 250 million jackpot, you could wait till it's 7 million, see what the numbers are, get it. So that's not an obscene amount. Does that make sense?
Yeah, just be like, I'm only going to win 250K this time. Just
exactly.
Keep things real.
So you don't buy a cheetah in your house and have a zoo and gold machine guns and cocaine on your desks and everything as a time traveler. But yeah, I know people are probably frustrated by that, but watching that, it was just kind of, I don't know, I'm just a stubborn guy, so it's like, yeah, you don't need all this, but they have this beautiful Cornwall estate. I don't know. That just was my one.
It is a pretty awesome house, I think. But it could have been in the family for years. Like,
yeah, it's true.
It looked pretty old. It might have been from his father, who was obsessed with wealth. He might have built it.
Good point. And do you like how the stakes in this movie are very high for us, like losing your daughter, like you come back and you have a son, and this kind of stuff? Do you enjoy how quote unquote low stakes this is? I mean, this isn't you're going away from society. You're not. Does that make sense? Like, it's very low stakes, but it hits you hard. I kind of enjoy that about it, and it remains nice. He's not using his powers for really horrible reasons, and sometimes he screws himself over by helping other people. So do you like how kind of nice the script is and how insular it is? Or like, was that refreshing for you?
I wouldn't say it's that. I'd say the stakes, I wouldn't say they're low, but I'd say they're very personal.
To them, they're high. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. So, on a personal level, like it's huge for him. He has to choose between his sister and, his daughter, basically. And, he's tried to like completely put her life back on track. Like, this is, a woman who for years has been self-destructing, and he's trying to help her because he loves her, and at the same time he would have to give up this daughter who he is fathered, and he still have a child, but it's a different child who he wouldn't even remember having, so he'd have to build a relationship. Like, it's just I'd say the stakes there are kind of high, and you have to make the choice to basically not do that.
I guess I'm just thinking in terms of like Thanos and the stakes of that, and then I just love but you're right. Personally, it's huge. And no, but you're right. It's so you and I were talking beforehand about how there's a lot of people. There's articles out there. I took a lot of notes that are really going hard at the logic in this movie, and they call it the most plot holey of plot hole movies. But I guess
I've seen
a lot, right?
Yeah.
But time travel, as we know it right now, is not real. So they put some rules into the time travel where you can only, you can't go forward. You can only go to places you've been. You can't go kill Hitler, stuff like that. It's kind of like a jumper type thing. Oh, wow. But yeah, so you have to kind of know where it is to go back and do all that. And then I guess later on, different people travel in different times. They go back to when they're kids. But we also learned throughout that Bill Nighy forgets to tell Domhnall Gleeson or Tim things. He's like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. So he probably didn't tell him everything. He just didn't. He probably assumed for his son, right?
Yeah. Like when we spoke about this previously, it's like when your only source on the entire spread of your abilities is your dad, who seems to be, he's a pretty cool guy, but he's also seems to be fairly laid back and kind of nonchalant, and might not be taking notes on like every single little thing that you could possibly do. He's not exactly applying the scientific method to his powers.
Yeah.
There's probably a lot of room for experimentation, and some of what he's told Tim is probably for Tim's own good rather than, explicit rules of you can't do this. It's more that, if you do this, you will suffer.
Mm-hmm. And so I just have a hard time with plot holes when it's based on a completely fantasy fictional plot. So it's like there's so many plot holes, but we don't even know what time travel is, so it doesn't really matter. Does that make sense? So I have a hard time with all these people being angry about the rules, because
some people get very, very, very irritated by what they see as things not working exactly as they think they should work, and then saying it's a plot hole rather than, just embracing and suspending disbelief. I think that is kind of the problem. Like, they're happy to believe that you can time travel, but if you don't explain like the ins and outs at the quantum physics level of how this is working, and if it's not completely consistent, it's like, no, it's just wrong. It just doesn't work. And I refuse to watch it, and I'll rant about it on the internet.
Do you think that's why Looper got away with some things? Because Bruce Willis said, I'm not going to explain it to you. It just works.
I think that's kind of a clever way around it, just by just take it as given that time travel exists, and we shall have a kick-ass action movie.
Yeah, exactly. And I love that scene too. It's very self-conscious, but I think it's such because everyone tries to do that. So I just love how he's like, just don't even worry about it. It's time travel. Like you can do something. Oh, so I dig it. And during the commentary I listened to, which is really relaxed, excellent. I mean, so they had Domhnall in it, they had Bill Nighy, Lydia Wilson, they had Vanessa Kirby, and then the Tom Hollander, and then they had the director Richard Curtis. And during the commentary, they called it the most time travel. It's the most time travel movie ever made. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, because time travel's not really, the focus of the plot.
Mm-mm.
It's just something that kind of happens from time to time. It's not like Back to the Future where the whole focus is him being able to travel through time back to his own time, or Looper where the whole thing is he's having to close the loop or whatever, or fix some future problem.
Mm-hmm.
It's purely just there as a plot device, almost. It's like this is a thing that can kind of happen. It's almost a storytelling device. It's like, look, we can show you what would happen if he changed how he acted in this situation.
I love
kind of like a sliding doors kind of thing, which was kind of a whole movie based on that conceit. But
I love though that like the tiny instances of time travel in this I do enjoy. So it's just I guess the first time that he hooks up with Rachel McAdams, or like Mary, his eventual wife, or when he meets her, he goes back to help. I love when he goes and helps Tom Hollander with his play, Harry, when he talks to the wrong actor. Oh, that's so funny.
And just the dirty look that he gives him as well. And then you got like Richard E. Grant as well as like the other actor, another like
huge, right?
Yeah.
And then so he has the signs, but then he realizes that he messed up with he couldn't go back to that restaurant, the dark restaurant. They had they had to film that 4 times because they couldn't figure out the darkness of it. So I thought that was pretty interesting. But then I like when he catches her at the Kate Moss show, how awkward that is. It's just painful.
Yeah.
But I don't know, I dig that about it because it's him learning about his powers, I guess. It's him.
Yeah, and I think he would have, I guess if she hadn't had a boyfriend at that point, he would have gone back and done that a few iterations just to kind of figure out, okay, that went terribly. What am I going to do this time?
Yeah. I mean, and then he brought poor Kit Kat with him. What's up with Kit Kat in this movie? Like, she's just a free spirit?
Yeah, it seems like she's kind of one of those people who floats through life and has, it seems like she hooked up with the wrong guy and probably got a little bit attached to the bottle, or, well, because it's a Richard Curtis movie, that's as far as it went. But I'd say if we were looking at something a little darker, there would have been much harder things involved.
Yeah, and it's so pleasant that there weren't harder things involved, right? It's kind of nice. That I like the Richard Curtis aesthetic of it. I don't know. It made me happy how kind of, I don't know, like she has her problem. They get into a car accident. They never explain it. They stay at her hospital bed. They hook her up with his friend, and then it's kind of
everything's fine.
Yeah, but this movie, do you think his movies sort of take place in like Love Actually? I don't think they take place in this world. They take place in a Richard Curtis what's a good Richard Curtis Ian world.
Richard Curtis verse.
Yeah, Richard Curtis verse, right? Because it's a different world that these characters exist. Because he wrote Love Actually.
Notting Hill.
It's everyone's pleasant.
There's a whole load of other things. Like I was looking through his filmography. Like there's so many movies through like the 90s and 2000s that he had a hand in. And like even before that in British TV, like Blackadder, Mr. Bean. He created Mr. Bean. Like he's done a lot.
So do you think that could be the case? Sort of. I mean, he wrote Yesterday as well.
Yeah.
So his worlds are kind of fantasy-esque, right? Because in Love Actually, isn't